We're familiar with seeing GT racing around the world. We are familiar with a 1-hour race with 2 drivers and a mandatory pit stop and driver changes. But this is a little different because it's not about drivers per se, it's not about teams, it's not about the manufacturers or the brands. It is about the nations as we get set for our first race of the 2024 FIA Motorsport Games. It is the GT qualifying race. Now, quick word of housekeeping. It is a 1-hour race. Pit stops between 25 and 35 minutes. Pit stop must last 56 seconds, pit in to pit out. And the results of this will determine the grid for the main race later on today. And it's the main race on which the medals will be awarded. David Addison and Joe Osborne trackside, and it's a dry track now. The sun is shining. A lot of rain late last night, and that left the track wet this morning. It's finally dried. A fascinating touring car qualifying session about half an hour or so ago, but now we're looking on to a dry circuit. One of the fascinations of the GT race is that it's available for bronze and silver graded drivers only. There is one nation that's gone for 2 bronzes. Every other one has gone for a silver and a bronze, but it means that these are perhaps some of the drivers that don't always get the glory. They're fighting for class results, but now they can go for outright glory and, of course, for those 3 coveted medals. And Joe, it's going to be a really intriguing hour of racing.
Yeah, the track conditions have been interesting to say the least this morning. A lot of the cars in this GT race doing a lot of recon laps, so they drive out the pits and then straight back through, giving them more laps to look at those corners and feel the grip more importantly as we go to the grid. United Kingdom there. Chris Froggatt, the driver, on the right, talking to his teammate James Cottingham, maybe just starting to think about what's coming ahead of them.
Drama from GT racing then is set to get underway here at Valencia. It's the first race of the weekend, and James Cottingham representing Team UK with Chris Froggatt. It is going to be Chris Froggatt that will go first. He's the start driver, and this is the first time that James Cottingham has raced a Ferrari, which in a sense is strange because DK Engineering there on the side of the car, the family business, prepares, restores classic and historic Ferraris. But we've seen James in GT Mercedes AMGs and then McLaren, but finally a Ferrari, and I think he was pretty happy in that car yesterday. They start second on the grid, Team UK. That's the car on pole, and it's going to be Finn Wiebelhaus, the young German driver, the teenager, who switched from Formula 4 to GT racing for this season. He will go first. Hubert Haupt, for whose team they drive, is going to take over for the second stint. Fourth on the grid is the Ukraine entry, and Ivan Peklin is going to go first there. And the other car on the second row on the inside is the Team China car, and Kang Ling is going to be the first driver in that. So the interest, in part, is going to be when people do these pit stops. There is that window, but in theory, there's not that much to choose between a silver and a bronze, so timing it right is going to be important.
Yeah, this can be a busy pit lane as well, so people can get blocked in as we look into the cockpit of that Audi R8 GT3 of Kang Ling, China. They're looking confident, cool helmet design. See the cap on the top, looking quite relaxed, pulling up his gloves, making sure he's comfortable for the stint ahead of him. Nothing worse than putting on the gloves slightly wrong and one of the seams, the sewing bits just starts to dig into your finger, and it's all you can think about for the entirety of your stint.
So the drivers are good to go, but before we get into the bones of the race, let's hear from one or two of the drivers. We found the Ukraine team there, but Antonia Rankin down on the grid has caught up with Team UK's James Cottingham and Chris Froggatt.
Chris, James, it's a beautiful day in Valencia, and what a great one to celebrate, hopefully winning a race for your country.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, the track is still a little bit mixed conditions. Off the line seems a bit greasy still, so I think overtaking and passing here is quite tricky anyway, and now with a bit of a greasy track, it's going to be challenging, but doable. We'll try our best.
James, what's your strategy going to be when you get into that car?
Well, obviously it all depends on how much of a good start to the race Chris has. But yeah, no, look, you've got to stay out of trouble. We really want to have a great result in this race, ready for the final later on today. That's the most important thing. So, you know, if we can have a front row start for the last race, then that's really where we want to be. Well,
we'll all be cheering you on. Good luck, guys.
It's an interesting point James Cottingham makes. Staying out of trouble in this is part of it because it's a small grid by the very nature of a nations type tournament. So you don't have to be on the front row to still get a good result out of the main race for the medals later on. And yeah, the racing drivers, of course, they want to win, but it's not worth binning it so early in the weekend.
Yeah, let's see how that we can remind them maybe of that into turn 2. I think it's going to be the big flashpoint. Turn 1, relatively fast left-hand, so the brake zone isn't so big, but turn 2 it's a left-hand hairpin, 180 degrees. We see a lot of concertinaing up there. So, yeah, and it's the best chance to overtake, isn't it? The first lap, when everyone's tight together, we always say it, but that's what the drivers know. So the risk versus reward calculator will be out in force, working out exactly how much that overtake is worth. If it goes wrong, you suddenly look like the zero and the hero is no longer possible.
A quick word about Chris Froggatt. We heard from him a moment ago, but he is the captain of Team UK. He was 2 years ago, but actually couldn't take part because he was taken ill within about 2 days of the GT competition. So he was meant to be driving that year with Ian Logie. Sam Neary was flown out to replace him. So Chris Froggatt finally gets a chance at representing the UK. He did drive for Team UK in the GT Nations Cup back in 2018 and the first Motorsport Games in 19, but had to miss out 2022. So it's good to have him back, and a successful driver, of course. If you follow GT racing internationally, you'll know the name of Chris Froggatt. He's won his class in recent years in GT World Challenge Europe Sprint and also in Endurance. He was the runner-up in the Nations Cup competition back in 2018, the same year that he won the European Ferrari Challenge as well. And he's chopped and changed a bit in recent years in GT cars. This year they've gone back as a team to a Ferrari, and I think he's in a happy place. Yeah,
it seems to settle well. Cottingham as well, driving it for the first time, that Ferrari 296, and absolutely loving it. So good to see a new car come into GT3 and do so well in that 296. A car that has been around for a long time, this Mercedes AMG, now on the Evo 2, but still very, very competitive too.
That's the Swiss entry. But let's go back to the grid. Antonia has caught up with Ukraine and the co-driver, ready for his second stint, Konstantin Gutsul.
Konstantin, a second row start for Ukraine. How exciting.
Well, it's extremely exciting, and we are extremely proud to be representing Ukraine here. It's a fantastic chance for us, so hopefully it all goes well. Huh?
What does it mean to you to be able to have the Ukraine flag on your car and represent them?
Well, you know, this is our motherland, so we're extremely proud, and yeah, it means the world to us.
Best of luck, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So the Ukraine car starting 4th on the grid, and it will be Ivan Peklin that will start in that. 5th is definitely a car to watch from France, because it was the French team that took the gold medal at Paul Ricard 2 years ago. Japan represented by, for stint 1, Shigekatsu Wakasaki, and then Kei Nakanishi for the second stint. So there are going to be some interesting cars to watch and some good battles all the way up and down the field here.
Yeah, Wakasaki, the only bronze driver in the start of this race, so the combined qualifying has probably promoted that car a little higher than it will be, so he's going to have a very interesting stint, I think. So he'll have his elbows out and he'll be hanging on there, so when he does hand over, they're in a chance still of maybe getting a podium position, which obviously is so important, determining their start position for the race later, which is all for the medals. Great shot from the drone here. You can see the different sort of nature of the surface there on the far left, looking a little bit drier than it is on the main part of the track. And I think that's what Chris Froggatt was alluding to. There are parts of the track which aren't as grippy as others, and I think that's going to add an element of spice, definitely to the first 15, 20 minutes, and potentially over the whole stint.
Now, there are people that are in this race that are in a car they know really well. They're for a team they know really well. There are others, like Malaysia's Selim Rafiq, who's not raced a GT3 car before. He's been in Lamborghinis, yeah, but Super Trofeo. And the Spanish team have put together this entry for the weekend. Fernando Navarrete, first time he's been in the Audi R8. He's not tested it, he's not raced it, but that car will be another one to keep an eye on. He shares with Jorge Cabezas. So I suppose behind all of this is the point that if you know the car, if you know your co-driver, if you know your team, you are going to have an advantage over some that have understandably put a deal together for the glory of representing their nation.
But interestingly, that delta will probably shrink, won't it? Every lap that these drivers are doing for the first time in their car, they're getting better. So they may not have qualified where they wanted to. Potentially Qatar in that boat, in the Porsche, brilliant car, very fast across the globe, but still getting used to it. So throughout the race, their pace may improve at a faster rate than the guys that are already at their ultimate sort of level. So we may see some chopping and changing all the way down the field on that demographic too.
The FIA Motorsport Games flag flutters in the gentle breeze and the sunshine here at Valencia as we get set to go racing. The officials down on the grid overseeing the countdown. It's going to be a rolling start. We've not been told that there's going to be an extra formation lap, so I'm assuming, therefore, that we are on a dry circuit. They ran yesterday in the dry, no wet running, but I don't think they need to worry about that now. Peter Yang, you looking at there for Chinese Taipei. He will go first in their Mercedes. Former Carter, Carrera Cup racer, and drove in the Macau GT World Cup race last year. Got 5th in that, in fact, so one of the home drivers that did really well. So there's the Malaysian team I was talking about. We're on town is going to start. Former Lotus champion in Asia, but a very experienced driver. He's raced in the Motorsport Games before. He's driven in the World Endurance Championship, in German Formula 3, single-seaters in the States even. So we're on town, very, very experienced, and will be a useful pair of hands. The grid, by the way, just quickly to finish off the point about the two drivers, the time wasn't set by one or the other, it was the combined average. So if there's a disparity between the pace of the two drivers, inevitably it affects the grid position. Yep,
and we saw that a little bit, didn't we, with Hubert Haupt in the Team Germany car was so clear on his session in Q1, but Q2 was so much closer. That's why the grid got shuffled and the gaps are that bit smaller. So it'll be interesting in the second half of the race when Haupt gets in that Mercedes. You can see it on pole position. If that car's anything but first, he had so much pace. I think he's going to be coming through the field quickly. The breeze does seem to have picked up. Bit of a tailwind into turn 1, and what interests me about that is that's, I think, the hardest corner to stay legal on the exit. And if you've got a tailwind forcing you even wider, the track limits issue may come even more of an issue for some of these drivers.
Wasn't me, Gav, it was the wind.
Yeah, it's a legitimate excuse.
Okay, so there's the pole position driver, Finn Wiebelhaus then, former Carter, turned Formula 4 racer, and came into GT racing in the Iberian Winter Series at the start of this year. He has raced in the ADAC GT Masters and in Italian GT and in the Porsche Endurance Trophy this year. So he's done a lot of miles in GT-style cars, and he's also going to represent Germany in Sunday's GT Sprint. They have qualifying, a Super Pole and one race for one driver on Sunday here, and he will represent his country again for that. The flags of the nations now start to leave the grid, row by row by row. Then on the 1 minute board, engines will fire. It'll be a rolling start, so they will set off behind the pace car effectively as it is. And thumbs up from Chris Froggatt. He's on the outside of the front row, but has got to start as one of the favourites in a race that counts for a grid, but equally, it's going to count for glory, it's going to count for pride, and it is another useful kind of test session, as you were making the point, for those drivers that are new to, take your pick, car, team, GT3 racing, circuit. You know, there are so many unknowns.
Yeah, as a driver, I can't ever think a qualifying race is a qualifying. You drop that word out of the title, it's a race.
Right.
So you can't use that as a mindset and be conservative at any point in this, I don't think. And the other reason, it's not just an ego thing of being conservative. If you're on the back foot and being cautious, you've got more chance of getting hit from the rear. Yeah. So I always just say, if you're the guy on the front foot, you're aggressive, you mitigate the risk of getting hit from the rear. That's 50% of the angle you can get hit from. Half the chance you're going to get hit would be my logic.
Stood you well in your career, that, hasn't it? So the countdown continues, engines are fired, and very shortly we are going to have the cars released. The Valencia circuit then, which is a very busy central point to the FIA Motorsport Games because there's lots of different track disciplines. There's also drifting. At the end of today, there's a rally stage around here. The cars are off on the tarmac roads in the hills not far away. There's Electric Street where auto slalom and kart slalom take place. But for the moment, it's all eyes on the track. As the 15-second board is shown, engines are all running and the cars in different liveries from how you normally see them, bedecked in the national colours, are ready to go. That familiar Sky Tempesta Racing livery for the Ferrari there on the outside of the front row. The pole position car, very proud Hubert Haupt when he was talking to us yesterday. And Finn Wiebelhaus now released from pole. And one last opportunity to get a bit of warmth into the Pirelli rubber. At 25 to 35 minutes, the pit window will be opened. And it's 56 seconds line to line. So it's a pretty quick pit stop, actually, that, given the length of the pit straight here.
Yeah, so any time lost there is time gone forever. So the drivers would have practiced their driver change to make sure they're not losing any time at all in the pit lane. But it is easily done. Obviously, seatbelts, there's 5 points to plug in, radio, window nets. There's a lot to go wrong and can go wrong.
Let's look at the grid. The start driver indicated then. It's Germany on pole position. Finn Wiebelhaus, the driver. And for the United Kingdom, it is Chris Froggatt lining up alongside. Starting third on the grid is going to be China, and it is Kang Ling lining up alongside Ukraine. Ivan Peklin is the start driver there. So it's an all Audi second row. The third row, France, Paul Everard starts, and Lithuania represented in the opening stint by Jonas Karklis. On the fourth row, it's Switzerland, Yannick Mettler, the driver, and for Japan, it is Shigekatsu Wagisaka who will go first. Then Spain line up on row 5. Jorge Cabezas is the start driver. And for Qatar, Ghanim Salah Al Mahmoud is alongside. Peter Yang represents Chinese Taipei on row 6. And Wei Ron Tam for Malaysia on his outside. Those are the nations that are trying to take gold, not in this race, but in the main race later on. There's an onboard camera aboard the number 93 Team United Kingdom Ferrari at Sky Tempesta Racing. Chris Froggatt is going to be your chauffeur around the lap.
Just looking at his dash, tyre pressure's down at 1.4 bar. That is the minimum. They can't be below 1.40 bar, so 1.42. So the tyre pressures are low, no tyre ovens for this race, which is quite rare in modern GT3 racing. So I expect this to be hard work for the drivers. That's going to take a couple of laps if everyone's similar to Froggatt as we go on board with Team Spain. Can't quite see their TPMS from there. I think I can see 1.6, 1.5. They should be at 1.8, 1.9 to generate the most temperature. So, yeah, 2 laps of some pretty loose rear-end GT3 cars incoming is my prediction.
Right, let's find out then how loose and who the drivers that are going to struggle the most are. You kind of feel a bit sorry when he gets into the car later for Team Malaysia, Selim Rafiq, new to the GT3 feel with the aero, the downforce and the extra speed that will generate. As we are set to go racing then, it's our first on-track race of the weekend at the FIA Motorsport Games then. It is the GT discipline, it's the qualifying race. The pace car bails for the pit lane. The lights on the gantry will change on instruction from the race director any second. Now, and it is blast off and a good start by the United Kingdom. Chris Froggatt then for the UK, he's going to grab the lead. Germany on the inside, good start by France. Look, 4 wide in the pack, but eventually France backs out of that for fear of contact, and there's almost a brush between them. Germany wide and there's a spin. Chinese Taipei, around has gone Peter Yang, others survive it all. This is the view from Spain, getting roughed up a little bit, coming up to turn 2. 4 wide was never going to work, and it didn't.
No, I thought France were very good at backing out. They had the inside and potentially could have kept his foot in. Look at how much that has hurt them. I thought they could have been going for second. Looks like they're all the way back, maybe in 8th or 9th as cars were spinning. Germany ran wide on these low pressures. The wind is an excuse for track limits at turn 1. I don't think anyone will get penalised for running wide at 1 on lap 1, but now the track limits will come into force strong. Mettler there, Team Switzerland under attack from Lithuania in the Audi there. Everyone fighting position. France weaving side to side as we look from above. How nervous are these cars? Big slides already happening.
So on the opening lap of the race, then they thread their way through, but from pole position, Finn Wiebelhaus, one of the sort of losers of that first lap, wasn't he? Because he's lost a whole heap of places, and by being on the inside line, you'd anticipate he had the advantage, but it was a slow-ish start. So United Kingdom leads China, leads Germany. Ukraine 4th at the moment, and a really good start by Malaysia, wasn't it? Because Wei Ron Tam has got the Lamborghini up into the top 6 from last on the grid.
Yeah, amazing. He's done half the field in 1 lap as we see Wiebelhaus down the inside into 14. Team China did an amazing job at the start to take 2nd place. Team Germany now want to get back all the way up to 1st place. That's one of the positions they need to do it. But look at the gap Team United Kingdom have done. France on the defence as well. Further back on Spain, those 2 Audi R8s very close. Spain looking to the outside. It's a hard move to go around. Are France going to be fair? Squeeze them over. On board with Team Spain, having to go all the way around the outside. Not got the grip, has to tuck in and has lost a lot of time. And now I think potentially going to be under attack from Qatar from behind in the Porsche.
Indeed so. At the end of the opening lap, UK was leading by 2.4 seconds, but Finn Wiebelhaus, now that he's up into 2nd and kind of getting into his stride, he's going to get those tyres turned on and he's going to go after the UK. So Chris Froggatt leads the pack at the moment, doing what he needs to do, trying to build a gap to hand over to James Cottingham. Now, I'm fast-forwarding quite a lot here, but bear in mind that when you get to the second stint, you've got James Cottingham for the UK, who's never raced that car, versus Hubert Haupt, who has raced the Mercedes AMG week after week after week for season after season after season. So there's greater knowledge in the Germany car for the second stint. In other words, Chris Froggatt needs, for the UK, a big gap just in case James Cottingham's lap times aren't as good as Haupt's.
Yeah, experience pulls apart in the cars. Obviously, Haupt, former factory driver for Mercedes, team owner as well. So couldn't be at the higher end of the spectrum. James Cottingham, very, very fast bronze, but not in a Ferrari thus far. So he will be watching this, and every tenth of a second that Froggatt can open up is a better chance that they can finish the race in first and start the main race for the medals later in the best position.
Now, France, after that courageous start, then backing out of it, kind of lost out, didn't it, for the rest of the lap? So France down in 9th place, and Paul Everard, who is the man behind the wheel, is no slouch. So I think we need to keep an eye on France and just see if they can rebuild this stint. This is where the, in theory, quicker driver is to be found. So Paul Everard here, before he hands over to Eric Debar, gold medalist in 2022 in this discipline, Paul Everard needs to be getting on with the programme. And at the moment, France dropping away just a little bit from Lithuania.
Yeah, both in Audi R8, run by different teams, so setups can be quite different. France car looking good though. Every time we look at it, it's not doing anything too bizarre. Rear of the car looks nice and stable as we see a fight. Ukraine versus Japan. Audi versus Ferrari. Japan looking for a cutback here. Can they get the inside? Flat out run. Ukraine put a defence on them, leaving just about the space. Japan are there. Now have got the inside. I think they claim the position as they brake hard for turn 8. Get it stopped. Don't go in too deep. Switzerland, Mettler there, looking to the inside in the Mercedes. 3 different brands generating their lap time very differently. Fair, but very close. Can Ukraine get to the inside? I think Switzerland will throw it down the inside, maybe on both of them. Filling the gap very well, Team Switzerland. Now has the inside into 12. Ukraine on the attack actually turns into another position loss. This is an amazing battle, and it looks like it's going to continue for a few more laps.
Fair play to Wagisaka, as you said, he was the bronze against the silvers, but he's rising to the challenge, isn't he, with the experienced Yannick Mettler for Switzerland right there behind in that really creatively liveried car with the sort of paint thrown at the side of it style. Ukraine watch on, flag proudly draped around them, and also watching on there, you might have just caught a glimpse of the man behind the team, Land Motorsport, Wolfgang Land, the German, who's a massively experienced and successful Porsche champion, as well as team owner, very successful team owner. It's his son Christian that runs the squad really these days, but Land Motorsport and the Land family, very successful in German motorsport. Right, Yannick Mettler, who has been around the block a lot, now trying to find a way for Switzerland past Japan. This is the fight for 4th and 5th places.
Yeah, even looks like the cars behind Malaysia, Lithuania are gaining a little bit because these cars are battling so hard. Fastest lap of the race done, last lap, Wiebelhaus, Team Germany. Gap now, it was down to 1.2, it's grown back up to 1.4 after the first sector on this lap. So Froggatt responding now. The team will be talking to the drivers on the radio, giving all the information of the cars around them, what lap times are doing. Looks like Ukraine just dropping off the back of Switzerland at the moment, but Switzerland still very tight to the back of the Japanese Ferrari car. Spain there, going back on board out of turn 8. France in front. We saw an attack a few laps back, didn't we? But that gap hasn't come back down just yet. You can see the delta in lap times there. It was swinging back in the favour of Spain there, as we see the garage of Spain on board. Really uphill 12 here. It's quite blind as you turn in. As we see it, spinner in front. Is that Malaysia off into the gravel? It is. Are they going to keep the momentum? Don't get it stopped in the gravel. I think your best bet is actually do a U-turn to your left, which is exactly what they're doing. Interesting to see where he looped that round. Looked very early, so I'd assume as soon as he's turned in, maybe a bit of moisture on the entry curb, has just lost the rear of the car. But Tan, after a mega start, is back to where he started. As we go a replay, let's see it in the background. Yeah, really early. Normally you see the cars hit the apex curb and lose it, but as soon as he turned in, it's gone around. I would assume he's opened the corner up on entry, used the curb, which has held a bit of moisture from the overnight storm, and has looped him round, but did well to not get stuck in the gravel.
Indeed so. He was able to keep the momentum going. He also, as Joe was saying, did a U-turn to his left, but that was downhill as well, so he was able to roll through the gravel. Now look at this in terms of coming down as well. The gap for the race lead. It was 1 second at the start of the lap. Chris Froggatt trying to stretch it back out again, but as we were suggesting he would, Finn Wiebelhaus, once he got second place for Team Germany, going after the United Kingdom. So it's the UK versus Germany for the race lead. And there is an incident that has been looked at, and there's no further action to be taken between Switzerland and Chinese Taipei. That was the spin from Chinese Taipei at turn 1. Right, so Germany hunting down the UK. And all of this taking you, of course, to the pit window.
Yeah, look at the gaps, 2 tenths, then nearly a second found 2 laps ago. Last lap back to 2.5 tenths time gain, but I think that's the flow at the moment. Is this going to be a race on the track, or are we going to see a split strategy, maybe pitting on different laps, and the pit stops can actually create the easiest overtake as a driver? The cars look even. I can't see any massive gaining, so 2 tenths over a 4K. So let's look down the straight. You can see the first 2 have checked out. China, now are they starting to get caught by Japan? Japan are bringing with them Switzerland and Ukraine as well. So I think there's a few battle packs forming as the cars and the tyres, just come into it's got a second phase of their life.
Although France still struggling. Paul Everard is still mired down in 8th place and not making the progress. And Wear on Town for Malaysia is at the back of the pack. So he has got a lot of work to do. There is France. Paul Everard under attack from Spain, where Jorge Cabezas is the man at the wheel. Let's have a look at the replay of the start. Compare and contrast Germany to the UK, but also France, another nation on its toes, so to speak, up the inside. But then Paul Everard thought, this is just going to get too crowded.
Yeah, he backed out of it. You see Chinese Taipei actually almost brake too late. And the only gap was on the inside of Switzerland, which then took them onto the grass and caused their spin. So, yeah, just look at the white Mercedes on the inside now, just diving. There's contact, but racing incident, definitely not Switzerland's fault. Everyone running wide all the way up to the gravel. This is where I think France, everyone should have kept his foot in. You've got the inside, and physics dictates if you've got the inside and there is contact, you run wide. And just look at the lack of grip he then has and loses all of these places. We go on board with Spain, 4 wide in front. You see Chinese Taipei come into shot potentially. No, we go too far wide. Then everyone gets forced out wide. There's Team France, and we're about 8 wide as we see Switzerland on the inside of Japan. That looks like move done, and good job by Yannick Mettler onto the home straight now and claims that position.
So that's 4th place for Switzerland. Down to 5th is Japan. Yannick Mettler, very experienced GT racer, and another spot gain then as he comes across the line. Behind is Japan, and then 6th is Ukraine as they drop down to turn 1. The lead gap still hovering around 11 tenths of a second between UK and Germany, and there in 3rd is China. Now the gap between China and Switzerland is 1.3 seconds. And the way that Yannick Mettler there for Switzerland is going, he's going to be up with him before long, I would propose.
Yeah, very quick last lap getting the move done. He's now got clean air as well, which is so important to these modern GT3 cars. Generates so much of the lap time through downforce. You can see the aggressive rear wing, but even the splitters, the dive planes on the front end. When you're stuck behind a car within a second, you're getting all the turbulent air and you get less downforce, and you start to use the tyre a bit more and the lap time drops away. Last lap for Fogger, actually 2 tenths quicker than Germany, so United Kingdom extending their lead back up once more. The ebb and flow of this race settling into a rhythm. I think it will be a race between their teammates as we go to a replay of this overtake. Switzerland get the inside through 13, then keep it on the white line. Japan doing a hard but fair job. Mettler does well not to go in too fast with the Mercedes and let the position go. He has really pulled a good gap though, hasn't he, to Japan behind already.
And I think Japan now coming under attack from Ukraine because Ivan Peklin is closing on Wakisaka as the teams look on. So the SPS Automotive Performance Squad that runs the Swiss entry, another experienced squad operating a car, watching on from the pit bunker. Leaders go by and the gap is down. Germany catching the UK, 9 tenths of a second now. It was over a second last time. China 3rd, and the gap China to Switzerland is down to a second as well. So it's concertinaing nicely for the lead and for 3rd place. But, and I know I sound like a stuck record, I'm getting really worried about France because Paul Everard in 8th place is just not making the progress.
Yeah, really strange with how good the start could have been. I wonder if it's just playing on the back of his mind or that is the pace the car is affording him. You're right though, China lost 3 tenths to Switzerland on that last lap, so Mettler within a couple of laps will be within striking distance potentially of overtaking and getting up to a podium position. Germany looking good again, gap back up to 1.3. It feels like Team United Kingdom have a very strong car in Sector 1, Sector 2's even, then Sector 3 goes back to Germany, and I think that's why we're seeing the ebb and flow of that gap open and close ever so much. But both the teammates Cottingham and Howe respectively be looking at these cars trying to glean information of when they jump in potentially in 13 minutes time. what is underneath them. The pit window 10 minutes long. I expect the pit window to go as late as possible. Keep these faster, higher graded drivers in for as long as possible though.
Lithuania and Malaysia being given 5-second time penalties for track limits. Now, bearing in mind, we've only had 13 minutes, we've got 47 and a half to go, and they're already being penalised. Now, you could argue that turn 1, lap 1 is a rather unfair way of earning a penalty, but if you continue to transgress, you know, they've got to be so careful, because even if it's reset at the end of a stint, you've still got to be careful up to the window.
Yeah, and as a driver, your job is to manage your track limits. And what I would say in a negative connotation against Lithuania and Taipei there is that they're not in a battle, so don't use your track limits up for just general lap time. Wait until you're in a position like Mettler is for Switzerland, and you maybe just need to let the car run a little wider to carry a bit more speed to get the overtake done. But don't just use them up on free will. You need to hold them back. As we look into the Chinese garage there, they'll be looking a little nervous. That gap after a great start for Ling has really fallen away, hasn't it? And actually Japan have stayed with Switzerland more than I thought. Ukraine a little bit off, but still I think the gap between China and Ukraine is diminishing.
But the Swiss Mercedes is going really well. Yannick Mettler has kind of woken up. I suspect it's that the tyres have switched on now, but Yannick Mettler looking really rapid, and as you say, he's hunted down China. So Kang Ling on the defensive now as the cars come through almost nose to tail. This is the fight for third place then. China versus Switzerland. Japan dropping back a little bit, and the leader now has a 5-second penalty for track limit abuses as well. So Chris Froggatt, the race leader, he'd stretched the gap to 1.3 seconds, but Chris Froggatt gets a time penalty. And that, I'm assuming, is going to be served at the end of the race, not in the pit stop, because it's not being identified as a pit stop penalty as such.
Yeah, just be added to total race time, so it's not as extreme as a stop and go of 5 seconds. But to the viewer at home, don't think that once you've got your first penalty, you can then do what you want because you've been penalised. It continues. The next one will be another 5 seconds, another 5 seconds. So at this rate, Team United Kingdom are going to have 20 seconds of penalties if we keep getting 5 seconds every 15 minutes. I think most cars will be affected at least once.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be who can keep a clean slate will be a big deciding factor.
That lead gap is stretching, though. It's up to 2 seconds between the UK and Germany. But the fight for third is getting ever more intense, isn't it? China coming under renewed attack now from Switzerland, and Japan catching back up as well. So Kang Ling for Team China. To call him the cork in the bottle is a little bit unfair because he's got good pace to be third, but he has got them stacked up behind. We're also having a driving standards flag for Ukraine for track limit offences. So they haven't got a penalty, but they're getting a warning flag.
Yeah, next time they do one, that would be the penalty. So the warning is your final warning once you are shown that. But just like illustrate, 5 seconds actually puts Froggatt all the way back down to third place at the moment. I think it'll be fourth. So the marginal gain of letting the car run wide, an honest mistake, is just not worth the risk. You have to be driving at 98% at the start of the race. To burn up those track limit warnings so early is a little naive. But you see how many cars are doing it. It's easily done here at Valencia.
Yes, it's about a quarter of the field at the minute as the drivers then accelerate out of turn 14. Quick reminder, pit window is after 25 minutes of the race done and before 35 minutes done. So you've got a 10-minute pit window in which the car must come in and do the driver change. You don't have to refuel, you don't have to change tyres, but you do need to do the driver change, and that really is all you want to do for fear of losing any more time. There's a regulation time pit in line to pit out of 56 seconds, and Yannick Mettler for Switzerland right now is crawling all over the back of that Audi run by the CSA team that we've seen in GT World Challenge Europe. And a little bit sideways is Kang Ling. He has to go defensive up towards turn 4. Just about survives that out of 5, heading towards 6 now. Japan catching back up as well. So 3rd, 4th and 5th absolutely together. Lead gap, by the way, is stretching now. 3 seconds between the UK and Germany.
Yeah, Switzerland on the flashes or the headlights, trying to catch the eye of Team China, trying to distract them. Mettler was so close. I don't think you could have got a Swiss precision watch part between the two cars at turn 5. Team China, interestingly, being the fastest in the speed traps. I think that's because they got a very trimmed out aero car, and that's why we saw such a big slide at turn 4. But then China have the advantage, and I think that's why we saw Mettler catch so quickly but can't execute the overtake, because China is so quick at the end of these straights where you need to be at your closest to get the overtake done.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we know that there isn't a big presence anymore from Audi as a manufacturer. but that R8 is still a really good turnkey GT car, and myriad teams operating them and still getting great results out of them. Over the line then comes China, then it is Switzerland, third and fourth. The margin between those two is just 0.2 of a second. The lead gap, though, is extending markedly lap after lap. Bearing in mind that Finn Wiebelhaus was catching Chris Froggatt a few laps ago, it's now up to 4.2 seconds. So Froggatt's nearly overcome the UK's penalty. Yeah,
and we saw the tyre pressures, didn't we, on the green flag lap. Froggatt was as low as could be. So I think that is the car going off for Germany, and Team United Kingdom going for maybe a slightly slower burner strategy-wise. Switzerland now catching back up to Team China. China going there. There's obviously setup changes that could have been done. It was a little bit damp. Have potentially Germany gone with a softer setup, so when the car is cold, the tyre pressures are low, it was happier, and now it's fully dry. A stiffer car would be quicker. There's an infinite amount of reasons, and as a racing driver, excuses off the back of that. Switzerland really hustling on, maybe starting to get a bit frustrated. We've seen the headlight flasher, and the problem is when you get frustrated, you start to get desperate, and desperate moves are never good moves. At the moment, all fair and all clean. Great drone shot showing the different of angle. Team China starting to open up the corners nicely, getting good exits. I think Mettler's best chance is on the exit of 12 here, trying to get a run and then throw it down the inside into 14. Not quite close enough at the moment. Can look to the inside. There's potentially a gap there. Not close enough this lap though. Needs to find another idea to get past that Team China car.
And is that other idea just to sit as close as he can and try and buy the place on the pit stops? Because if he can't do it on the track, it might have to be down to the crew and cycling through as rapidly as. He's going to have a look at turn one then. Switzerland looks to the inside, feinted to the inside against China. They just dropped Japan ever so slightly, but Kangling is going to go a little bit wider maybe, coming out of the corner. Again, lights are flashing. Switzerland to the inside as Yannick Mettler attacks up at turn two. And the margin between them as they came across the line, just over 1/10 of a second.
We saw Team China open up turn one. I went to look at their last lap time. It actually says pit out. They were so wide opening turn one. They actually caught the exit loop of the pit lane. So that would very much attract the attention of race control for track limits if you're physically doing that. So it hides their pace, 1:34.7. So the pace has really dropped off for everybody but Team United Kingdom. The only car in the 1:33s and a 1:33.3 on the last lap. Their pace is brilliant. Gap now 6.2 seconds to Team Germany in second.
The lead gap then, 5.6 seconds. United Kingdom overcoming the penalty for the moment. There's another penalty being applied in the same vein for track limits, and it's going the way of Japan. It's another 5 seconds then. So Joe was predicting that more and more people were going to cop these, and the penalty for Japan is being shown twice, in fact. So whether they've incurred it twice or it's just been listed twice, I can't tell you. But it's certainly on the message line twice. Once might be a duplication of the first message rather than a second penalty. Meanwhile, China and Switzerland still run together, and we're now 4.5 minutes or so away from the pit window opening. So Mettler for Switzerland needs to get the job done before he brings the car to the pit lane.
Yeah, I see the teammate there, Dexter Muller, looking on for Switzerland. You've got a great illustration as well of the V10 Audi against the V8 Mercedes, just edging away. And obviously you'd expect the other way, the Mercedes in the slipstream should be drawing in, but the power of that Audi at the end of the straight, really, really good. The rear wing does look pretty flat, pretty trimmed out, so running less downforce potentially. Mettler looking calm inside that Mercedes. Japan almost just there, ready to sweep up if there's an issue between it. I feel like Switzerland just haven't got an answer to get this overtake done. I still think 14 is their best chance, but it is a dive. That's very wide. That's one of your track limit warnings done there, Team Switzerland. Need to be careful. Pit window opening in 3 minutes 30 seconds. I think you're right, David. I think the best opportunity for the overtake is actually off the racing track.
Indeed so, as you look at this battle between China and Switzerland, and Yannick Mettler's frustration is increasing. Drivers getting ready for the pit stops then. As for Ukraine, getting himself ready there is Konstantin Gutsul. The China car is going to be given to Yaki Zhang, the Swiss entry to Dexter Muller, and for Japan behind it, it'll be Kai Nakanishi who will take over. Lead gap, 6.7 seconds now. I'm intrigued to know why Finn Wiebelhaus has dropped away, because he's just not been able to keep that pace, has he? And at the moment, although Wiebelhaus has done the fastest lap, that was set very early on.
Yeah, Japan very wide turned, didn't they? Because all the dust the car was kicking up. Ukraine now much closer to the back of Japan than they have been for the whole race, it feels like, since the move was done by Switzerland on that Japanese Ferrari there. Mettler using the headlight flasher rather a lot now. Sort of streaks of desperation when you're a driver. I get it once or twice, but if that's all you've got as an attack, I can just not look in my mirror and ignore the only attack you're trying to mount on me.
So there is Ivan Peklin, who has caught back up again. The Ukraine Audi, operated by the Land Motorsport squad. Still with the light going is Switzerland, and Mettler could barely be closer to China. It's going to be interesting as well in this to see who blinks first, if you like, and who comes in. Is it going to be Switzerland to get out of the traffic, or would China come in? And in that instance, does Switzerland stay out longer and try to maximise the clear track space ahead? Taking to the curb on the inside and kicking up the dirt now is an increasingly desperate Switzerland. Yannick Mettler is fed up staring at the back of that Audi of Team China. He wants to get past. He's running out of options.
I think he's now just drawing a blank. The team will always be trying to help them, say, you're stronger in this section. He's really opened up 12 well here, though, and this is where he needs to carry a bit more speed. Ideally, China has a bit of a Porex, and that gives the overspeed to him. He's looking to the inside. Can he slingshot down? China blocks nicely as they hit the brakes. There wasn't a space. Ukraine also looking to get the run out of this corner. We know the Audi's strong, where Japan doing a track limit there. Now China's on the defense. This is the first time we've seen it this close on the pit straight, running all the way to the white line. Mettler has to come back to the racing line. Doesn't look like the move can be done. Can he go around the outside? I think not.
But what about a good run up the inside to turn 2 now? Again, the door is closed by China. Switzerland to the outside line as they get to the braking zone. The danger for Switzerland is that behind you've got Japan, and you've got also now Ukraine catching up as well. So that's a distraction if they get right onto the tail and start attacking Switzerland. Another reason why Mettler has got to get the job done. And the window will be open in 44 seconds time. So we're not far off people heading for the pit lane. Look, Japan closing up to the tail of Switzerland.
I just don't think anyone's going to pit early because these are the faster drivers out the two. So yes, frustrated, but I still think at this point Mettler's pace is stronger than it would be if he handed over to his bronze-rated amateur driver Dexter Muller. So painful, yes, but faster also, yes. So you've got to stay out. The gap I'm also interested, P7 Lithuania 6.5 seconds behind. I think that gap will start to shrink. China now defending so heavily. I think they're going to be losing 5-6 tenths of a second as we are seeing this team Spain is that ready for their driver change potentially earlier than the rest. Yeah,
Fernando Navarrete's going to replace Jorge Cabezas by the look of it as Mettler dances the Team Switzerland Mercedes over the curb. The pit window is now open, so we're going to see if anybody bails at the end of this lap. Chris Froggatt will come over the timing line in the lead for Team UK. Finn Wiebelhaus in second spot for Team Germany. China stays out, Switzerland stays out, and again, nose to tail over the timing line to the inside, tries to think Mettler, but he's just not quite close enough at the end of the straight. That Audi is a very well-driven car. Kangling, to be fair to him, when he came to Europe to race in Formula 3 many years ago, did not really shine, but he's developed into a really good GT racer, and the evidence is here for all to see. To the pit lane comes Team Spain, and now on track, the battle for third place takes up attention once more.
Yeah, 50 kilometres an hour being limited there automatically for the driver. You're right, we haven't seen China make a single mistake yet, and that is all that Mettler would need to get that Mercedes past. I am worried for Mettler. He's starting to do more track limits in that Mercedes, the Swiss car there. Driver change about to start. You can see the driver pretty G'd up, the adrenaline going through his legs, bouncing up and down. Looks like he got something caught there. I couldn't quite see what that was, to be honest. I don't know if it was a driver cooling hose potentially. China's still making all their apexes. If you're on the apex, it's very hard to get overtaken. Yeah. I feel that's Team China's strategy here, is get it stopped. Mettler looking so close, but still just not a gap opening up whatsoever.
And the same thing's happening behind Ukraine, all over the back of Japan. So Japan has dropped off the back of Switzerland for the moment, and Ukraine, Ivan Pelkin at the wheel, looking for a way through. Peklin now up to turn 12. Mettler for Switzerland is wide as well. And as the leaders accelerate now up towards turn 13, Chinese Taipei into the pits. So that is Peter Yang to give way to Kuo Chin Kuo, leader through. So UK, Germany still 1 and 2. The next pair for third, the next pair for fifth. And again, China with a bit of an advantage, coming past the pits of about a length over Switzerland. And Kangling takes more liberties than anybody in terms of opening up turn 1.
I really like it. I don't think he's getting penalised for it, so you might as well, as we see, as Chris Froggatt run wide, yes, out of 12. That is a big, big moment. That would have been a couple of seconds time loss. Is there any damage to that car? The splitter's so low, skipping across the gravel like that. Very easy just to bend one of the stays, and it points down, going on board here with another pit stop. One of the Audis coming in, looking for their team. Pull to the right, stop the car straight. Lithuania, they were gaining on that pack. So it looks like, are they doing their penalties here? The car's not being worked on. I think the 5 seconds are being added in the pit stop. So by the time we get to the end of the race, everything will be clean, as long as they haven't attracted even more penalties.
Indeed, yes, they're not being specified as pit stops. We've had the change between Ukraine and Japan, though. Peklin's got past Wakisaka, and this is how it all happened. So coming out of turn 1, we'd seen the battle between China and Switzerland, and just a really good exit. Look at the huge speed differential. The Audi charging up on the inside, and Peklin goes through without really too much of a struggle, almost as though Japan had a problem.
Yeah, I exactly would say it. It's like it's missed a downshift and it's in too high a gear. As Wakisaka's gone for the throttle, the torque isn't there, maybe he's in 5th, not 4th. And Ukraine had a great run, yes, but it was more the Japanese Ferrari was slow, I think. So after not putting a foot wrong so far, the only bronze-graded driver in this stint has just lost a place to Ukraine, but still going strong in 6th overall.
Right, we still have the United Kingdom, Germany 1-2, but the margin is 11 seconds between them. Now 5 of those are going to be negated on the pit stop with the penalty for the UK car, but it's been, other than the track limit penalty and other than his gravity excursion, a good stint by Chris Froggatt in terms of trying to build up that lead. Now though, Chris Froggatt has caught up with the cars, released from their pit stop, so having had a clear road ahead of him, now he's got stuck in traffic.
Yeah, big traffic as well. These guys are on their out laps. Got the Spanish car there, and then we've also got the 71 Audi, a Lithuania, big slide from them. These cars close. What are Team UK going to do? They could squeeze another 3 laps out of Froggatt. He should be clear of the traffic by the end of this lap, but that definitely would have lost him a couple of seconds. So that gap coming down, it's all going to go over to the teammates, isn't it? And we've seen how fast Team Germany are with their qualifying driver in that first session, Hubert Howe.
Yannick Meckler is going to go to bed tonight having visions of that Audi's back end sort of implanted on his eyes, because he stared at it for the bulk of this opening stint, closing right up again there, look, as they come down through turn 11, but to no avail. Thinks about the inside line, can't do it there either. They come up to turn 12 now, and although the Audi possibly goes a little bit wider there, the danger arguably behind now is Ukraine, because Peklin, having cleared Japan, setting off in pursuit, and I think Japan's got a problem because that Ferrari has lost a lot of time.
Okay, interesting. They definitely didn't accelerate out of 1. It wasn't even shot cotting there. Team UK ready to go, potentially in the next couple of laps. Mettler, again, the worst thing about this for Switzerland is the exhaust of the Audi are the same height as the driver intake cooling for the Mercedes. So yes, he'll be dreaming of it, but I think he'll be smelling it as well. That big V10 engine pumping out a load of fumes right into Mettler's face.
And look how quickly now Ukraine is catching up. Peklin is getting closer and closer all the time. The margin between them is coming down, but Peklin's last lap was a fair chunk quicker than those ahead, so he's catching up, whereas Japan's last lap was 2 seconds slower. I think that AF Corsa run Ferrari's got a problem. Look, no longer is it in shot. It's really dropped off the back.
Yeah, it can't be a huge problem because it's not boxed.
No.
I agree with you if it's maybe just tire pressure. Big slide of Peklin there, and the Ukraine car coming out using all the exit curb. Germany in a lap or 2 earlier than I think United Kingdom. Interesting there. I wonder if we could hear from the start driver, Weberhaus, just to see what happened to the pace. How leaving looks like all calm and relaxed in their garage.
Whereas now, finally, Switzerland up the inside of China. There's a little bit of a rub, but that was the opportunity that Mettler has been waiting for half an hour, and finally was able to take it. Switzerland is through and clears China, and look, straight away the gap starts to stretch, illustrating that Mercedes was always the quicker car, but the well-driven, defensively driven Audi of China was able to fend it off. Ukraine is right up there as well, but that was quite a move by Yannick Mettler for Switzerland. He was just able to find a gap on the inside, and finally Kangling made a tiny error.
and he's got 2 laps now until he has to box and clear air. So be interesting. We saw the end of it. It just looked like finally China had left a car width that Switzerland very much prized open. Let's have a look at a replay. So they're coming out of turn 8 through 9 and 10. It's 11, the next right-hander. They get it done. Mettler looking pretty calm, then suddenly dives to the inside because China just runs a little deep, missed the braking point potentially there, went in too hot, and Mettler was there to pounce, wasn't he? Great job. Bit of rubbing, but fair in my opinion.
So Switzerland up now into 2nd place, because remember, you take for the moment Germany out of the equation with that pit stop. So Hubert Haupt has taken over the Team Germany entry, but will gain places back when others make their mandatory pit stops. But you can see the pace that the Switzerland Mercedes has got now that Yannick Mettler is getting away demonstrably from Kangling for China, and Ukraine, Ivan Peklin catching up as well, ready for their pit stop. So they're running out of time before the window closes. You've got to be in the pits, even if you've not actually done the stop itself by the time the window closes. That's the leader. So Chris Froggatt leads the way. Another lap completed. So he's going to go round for one more lap. He knows this car inside out. Ferrari champion, GT champion. James Cottingham new to racing it, but a very experienced peddler himself. He will get in very shortly. There is Yannick Mettler then in 2nd place. Now the last lap from the leader was a 1:33. I'm just intrigued to see what Yannick Mettler can do as China pits, Ukraine pits. So the 2 Audis nose to tail on the track, nose to tail as they come down the pit lane. And the last lap from Yannick Mettler was a 33, but he's still 0.8 of a second a lap slower than the leader. So Yannick Mettler not really catching back up in real terms.
No, unfortunately for him, now he's got clear air. The tyres would have just dropped off, so he can't improve his overall pace. Surprised Ukraine didn't go for one more lap. I think they had 10 seconds to spare that. They could have done an extra lap and still got in. So it's an Audi race in the pit stop. Car coming to a stop. You can see the next driver ready. Lollipop illustrate to the driver where we need to be stopping. Driver change. They're very well practiced, can be anything as low as 18 seconds. China doing the same, Ukraine, Japan as well in the background. They're serving their penalties. They're not starting their driver change just yet. Tyre pressure adjustment, going on. Their driver doing the belts up, making sure, good job by Peklin. Car looks a little leery at the end. Mechanic giving a bit of a shake of that, maybe just seen the rear tyre pressure and gone, wow, that's high. And good luck for the rest of your stint.
So one mandatory stop, purely to do the driver change. Away blasts Gutsul for Ukraine. And let's see, yes, he's going to get ahead of China. It's a slow stop. There's a problem getting the belts done up, seemingly, for China. And look, they're still there, hemorrhaging time. Japan's going to get back into the mix in this. Ukraine ahead of Germany as well. Look, as it went down the pit lane. So Ukraine has gained hugely on the pit stops. Here comes Haupt, though, for Germany up the inside and retakes the place then. So that's going to put Germany back up, if you like, to where it was, ahead of Ukraine. And only now is the CSA Racing Run car ready to go. Chris Froggatt, I think he's heading for the pit lane. He is. He's down the pit lane now, but massive problems in the pits for China.
It just shows one small mistake. Looked like the window net, to be honest. The driver getting out couldn't get it in. Ling pushing with all his might, but it just wouldn't go in. So here we see the procedure. He stops, can't undo the belts before that. Jumping out, Chris Froggatt is a very tall gentleman. You can see him squeezing out that narrow aperture, but the belt's staying up, not falling down, constantly adding a seat in. Froggatt putting the radio in straight away. Then Switzerland doing exactly the same procedure. These 2 drivers, though, Mettler and Müller, share every year for the last 3 years, so they'll be very, very well versed. Cosman doing his belts up. You can see Mettler now helping in. Window net stuck on a bit of Velcro to the outside the car, like that on the Mercedes, means it can't fall down. And this is the race. We're in turn 12. When's that Ferrari going to get released? Now he's got the pit straight and turn 13 as a lead as Cosman goes on his merry way.
So Switzerland blasts back into the race. Germany has already pitted. So this is where the shuffle is going to come. But I think Germany has lost out badly with those slow laps from Wiebelhaus for whatever reason. But look at that. Switzerland has gained hugely over Germany.
Yeah, really have. And I think they did 2 extra laps with the pros as well, Switzerland and the UK. And that shows you the differential between our amateurs and our pros. The amateurs very, very quick, but it's not their job. Battle in the foreground. Lithuania against France. We've seen those Audis fighting, and Spain in the background as well. Looks like Lithuania has got the pace, just needs to get it stopped. Sorry, it's Spain.
The inside, yeah.
Exactly, getting it done. So those Audis have been running as a trio the whole race, and now Spain are in front of France.
Spain currently the leaders of the medal table with 2 gold medals in the in total, based on the rallying last night. So Spain now with Fernando Navarrete at the wheel. He's not raced this car before, but you wouldn't think it, would you? Because he's straight away taken on and got past Eric Debard, the gold medalist from 2 years ago. Now behind for Lithuania, it is Arūnas Gečauskas, and he will be inching his way closer to France over the course of this lap. But for the UK, the lead car now driven by James Cottingham, and Dexter Müller taking over for Switzerland. There is the leader, so the pit stop had to include that 5 seconds. And with 23 minutes to go, up towards the timing line then comes James Cottingham, and the Chinese Taipei Mercedes sort of drifts across in front of him. But that's the gap, look, because as he goes down to turn 1, here out of turn 14 is Dexter Müller for Switzerland. That is the length of the pit straight and a bit. Yeah,
15 seconds, then another 5. Fogart looking pretty happy with his job. Remember, 5 seconds as well for a penalty, so that could have been over 20 seconds, that gap last lap for Hubert. How did he gain on Switzerland? Yes, he did in the sector 2 and 3, but as an outlap, so I don't have a total lap time. Ukraine dropping off the back of Germany a little bit. Big slide from France. Is that going to give Lithuania the chance? I think it will. Same cars, but it looks like France has got a slightly better speed at the moment. Lithuania just trying to get the slipstream. The side draft really strong in these cars. Now it's starting to go through. Get it stopped. France defending hard. Cuts across the front. Can he keep it on the track? Looks like he can. He lives to fight another day, doesn't he? Just.
Yeah. Good battle between these two. Eric Debard for France and Arūnas Gečauskas for Lithuania. France going a little bit wider there coming off the corner. So right now the lead gap is 16 seconds, and this is about 16 millimetres between France and Lithuania. Great scrap going on between them. It is for 6th and 7th in the race. Same type of car, different teams operating them. And the Santilot run car, the French team for the French country, is just ahead of the Lithuanian R8 at the minute. Eric Debard trying to build that gap up once more.
Yeah, it looks like Germany is closing on Switzerland. I think in the next 3 laps they'll be in striking distance, so that will give Germany a chance to start on the front row for the medal race later on today. Be roles reverse, won't it? UK on pole, Germany second, and we saw how quickly that can change. Lithuania to the inside, just backs out of it. Clever driving from all. France left the gap, but Lithuania knew it was a high-risk move, so decided to back out of it, but is starting to look frustrated once more.
Chinese Taipei and Qatar have now got 5-second penalties as well for track limit offences as the two Audis run nose to tail. Lithuania looking for a gap, goes to the inside coming into turn 14. It's brave and it doesn't quite work. Contact avoided, but Debard couldn't get the apex, so he runs out wide. France loses the place. Lithuania goes through, and Eric Debard for France has to slot back in and try to retaliate once more. Down to turn 1 then. France feints to the inside. You've got to be really brave though to brake so late going into the corner. Lithuania stays ahead, and actually the gap stretches as they come through turn 1.
Yeah, I think Lithuania have now got the pace to pull away from France. Good driving by both drivers, super aware. France opened the wheel up to avoid any contact at 14, but then that made them run wide, which then lost them the place ultimately. Hard but fair racing. Here's Hubert, how Team Germany has caught Switzerland all the way up. Neighbouring countries, neighbouring on track as well now.
The last lap for James Cottingham was slower than the last lap for Hubert Haupt, and Germany versus Switzerland trying to find a way through on the inside, and he's going to do it. Is he coming off the corner? Not quite. He tried to do to Switzerland what Switzerland did to China earlier on in the race. Haupt again on the inside line, coming up to 12. Can't do it there, and he's getting a little bit frustrated. He knows he's quicker. He knows he wants to get past, but that was exactly the situation Switzerland found itself in earlier on up against China. Down towards turn 14 they come, and Haupt again late on the brakes, closing right up. Great shot that from the drone as you look down on the pit straight. Haupt's got good drive off the corner for Germany. Germany to the inside and Switzerland to the outside, and the job will be done by Germany on the run into turn 1. Germany goes by, so Hubert Haupt gains the place. The car run by his team. Germany through on the inside, job done, up into second place, and 20 seconds is the margin now between the top two. Now, Yannick Mettler drove the Team Switzerland Mercedes in that first stint and had a real battle with Team China's Kang Ling. We can hear all about that because Yannick is with Antonio Rankin.
Yannick, first of all, happy birthday. Not the best birthday present to watch the car be passed there, but you were having a fantastic battle with the Chinese car.
Absolutely, and I mean, Dexter just took on the fight with Hubert, who is a very experienced pro, so yeah, that's not making the stint I had less fun. It was really enjoyable. Unfortunately, there was a little contact at the start, so I had to actually, I think I lost the position first. had to recover, but yeah, the car was mega today, and I just felt we were into for something, and yeah, just made one move after the other, which on that track is very tricky. So very happy it worked out, and yeah, what better birthday to wish for.
Well, the car is obviously very fast. Can you talk us through the battle that you were having there? Because you really did seem to have the superior pace.
Yes, actually, like following other cars here, you lose quite a bit of pace in the dirty air, but I noticed that I didn't drop after a few laps, so I knew I had more fuel in the tank, and it was just a question of time until he would do a mistake under the pressure, and that's what he did, and I just managed to squeeze by. So yeah, well, it was good fun, but now the main focus is on this afternoon's main race. So the goal was just to get a little bit to the front on the grid, to be in a good position to hopefully battle for gold.
Well, you are in one of the best positions you can be. Enjoy the rest of your day.
So, Yannick Mettler celebrating his birthday, and you never know, when we get to the medals race, it might be a different story. So, Dexter Miller at the wheel of the car, but it has fallen back now. In as much as 2 seconds is the margin between Germany and Switzerland. But what about the UK and Germany? Well, it's 19 seconds, and last time around, Hubert Haupt was slightly quicker than James Cottingham. So, the gap is coming down a little, if not much.
Yeah, 0.8 of a second faster on that last lap, but with 17 minutes remaining, unless Cottingham has a big issue. Could be a track limit one, could get a penalty, could make it spicy, but I think the AF course Ferrari team would just be telling Cottingham, just relax, we don't need anything special, your pace in the 35s as it is fine. That's a huge gap of 20 seconds. I even think Hubert Haupt will probably be thinking, I'm just going to back off and just make sure I get the car home without making any silly mistakes. Remember, this is the qualifying race, and this determines the grid order for the main race this afternoon. So yes, you could try and catch Cottingham, but I don't think it's feasibly possible in the time that you've got remaining.
So James Cottingham, new to the car, but doing a good job, because every lap he does, he learns a little bit more about it. That's not to say that he's an am, not to say that he's an inexperienced driver, but he just does not know this specific GT3 car. But you wouldn't think it, would you? The way that he's pressing on at the moment. He spent most of his year in GT3 McLarens, in GT World Challenge Europe, and in the FIA World Endurance Championship. And James, who made his name initially in historic racing with great success in a myriad different cars, but came into modern GT racing a few years ago, was instantly impressive at Brands Hatch, carried on for a couple more seasons, came oh so close to winning last year's British GT Championship, didn't he, in that last round at Donington, only for his co-driver to pick up a penalty, and it all unravelled around him. Good battle going on here between Japan and Qatar. For Japan now, it is Kai Nakanishi, and losing a place because up the inside goes the Ibrahim Ali Al-Ghodani driven Qatar Porsche that then goes wide and very nearly came into the pit lane.
Yeah, very wide. There's a bizarre line coming out of the corner there. Japan now got the run. I think there's a chance of the move getting reversed into turn one. It was a great initial lunge by Qatar. Super late on the brakes as well, so that's their best form of defence. Brake late in the car you're fighting. It's very hard to get overtaken, obviously. Japan still looking racy, looking to the inside into turn two, but it looks like that Porsche from Qatar has got the pace, I think, now to start to pull away.
I think the livery on that Porsche, the Qatari colours, look really good, don't they? And that car, it's always good to have Porsches within a GT grid. You've got two of the best brands available, haven't you? Historic brands, Porsche versus Ferrari. Here you've got Mercedes-AMG versus Lamborghini. It's Chinese Taipei versus Malaysia. Absolutely dead set level all the way down the pit straight. And the last of the late breakers is Chinese Taipei up on the inside. And a place gained back then by Kuo Xin Kuo, moving himself past Salim Rafiq. So that was the car that spun at the start, remember, the Chinese Taipei Mercedes, and that's just given them 11th place. Yeah,
and to get past the Lamborghini, which also had a spin, so it's the race between the spinners. Hubert Haupt in the background catching these two as well, so he'll just have to take his time, making sure he doesn't get caught up while lapping cars. Easily done. You expect the driver to see they're showing the blue flag, but sometimes their attention is elsewhere and that can catch you out as well. As we see the three Audis now getting spaced out. France have really struggled in this race in both stints. Maybe they did go a little softer on the setup, thinking the track level grip wasn't going to be where it's at, but obviously they can change that setup for the long, important race this afternoon.
So what about France? In the meantime, Eric Debar, 7th spot, and falling away a little bit from that very rapid Lithuanian Audi. The Lithuanian car currently being driven by Arūnas Gečauskas, and a good stint being put in from the former time attack and then touring car racer. There is the Lithuanian car, so that Audi, what's its chances of gaining further ground? Fernando Navarrete for Team Spain is the one that he's chasing, and the gap between them is 3.9 seconds, and last time around, yeah, Lithuania a little bit quicker. It's not going to be an easy catch, but it is doable.
Yeah, and he's just got to be asking the question. 0.4 of a second quicker on the last lap. Keep chipping away like that. You can see the gap there as well between those two Audis just starting to change. That's Spain versus Ukraine. Some big gaps there, taking over a second a lap on average, obviously, and that gap now going down at a quick rate. So let's go on board with Spain. It's turn one. How much entry do we use? We use a foot or so of it. Get it into the apex. Pick up the throttle, hard on the gas, up on the gears now. One more big break into turn two. Get the car in. You can see the racing line, the cleaner part of the track there, out wide. Don't get a track limit though. In through three. Is he flat? Easy flat V10, streaming away hard on the brakes. Lots of apex curb likes to be used here at 4, out wide, and stay wide for your entry into 5. Late apex, open up the wheel. Again, careful of track limits. Fight the car over to the right as quickly as you can, so you've got straightest possible car braking into 6. Bring the car in, open up the lock. Big curb here on the exit of T6. Have to be careful. Easy flat through this kink of 7. Spot your braking point into turn 8. Hard on the brakes. Some drivers have a double apex. That's exactly what we're doing. In once, bit of oversteer. In twice, out wide, stay wide again. Open up this, so we're flat through the left, and then pick your braking point on the right. But you're actually braking all the way now for turn 11. Late apex again. Open the car up. Confident drivers stay on the curb and turn in from the curb. You can see the Ukraine car sweeping back out. Careful of the sausage curb on the inside. Pick the throttle up. Not into the gravel though. Round 13, easy flat kink. But the kink makes the braking very difficult for here at 14. You're not straight, it's downhill. Corner comes up, very easy to run wide. A little bit of oversteer as we trail the brakes in. Little bit wide as well on the exit. I think we're just about legal. That was a fast and hard lap from Spain. A lot of oversteer, but great car control to keep us pointing in the right way.
Team Ukraine watching on as well, as the car that they have is currently in 4th place. And the margin over Spain, 2.5 seconds. Last lap, it was Spain quicker by about 0.9 of a second. So there is a change on the cards for 4th place here. Remember, this is, a big spin for Japan, first of all. Let's get that out of the way. Kei Nakanishi is the spinner over at turn 11, and he's on the outside of the road trying to get the car to fire up again. I was going to say, this is only to give you a grid for the main medals race later on, but right now, Nakanishi hemorrhaging places. The cars sort of take about 30 seconds, don't they, to sort of reset and restart. Nakanishi then trying to get going again. The race director will give him time, but if after, say, a minute, the thing hasn't moved, and it does now move, you would have to neutralise the race. But thankfully, we don't get to that point because Kei Nakanishi is away.
Yeah, as soon as the car rolls backwards, a lot of the sensors sort of fail safe. So essentially, you have to reboot the car. Like you said, 30 seconds, turn it off, let it go to sleep and refire it up. Be interesting to see if that was all by himself. He was running by himself, as we see Switzerland then cutting through. They've had a pretty eventful race, Japan. They looked super strong at the start, then started to fade. And obviously then potentially, let's have a look at a replay, the slow-mo of Spain. You can see him coming through that kink there at turn 3, getting the car in, driver working hard behind the wheel through turn 4. You can see the energy in the car bouncing around, springs and dampers working in perfect harmony to give the driver the best possible grip and feel all the way up to the gravel trap, inch perfect and a little bit more.
Indeed so, and there is the rather red-faced Kei Nakanishi after his spin. That's put him down into 11th place. So Nakanishi trying to fight back. He's dropped a lap to the leader, and the lead gap still 17 seconds. So although Hubert Haupt is pressing on and he's a little bit faster, in fact he was a second quicker last time, it's still too big a gap to make up. In the remaining 9 minutes, there's a 10-second penalty now for track limits going to France. So Eric Debard for France has got 10 seconds worth of penalties. The one thing a timing screen needs is a column for the number of penalties you've incurred, but it's got every other bit of information we could possibly need. But the list now is the majority of the entry. Audi battle well and truly joined. Spain on Ukraine. Gutsul just ahead, but Spain dives to the inside line, and Fernando Navarrete goes through then. That is for 4th place. And great news for the home nation then, because through on the inside line goes Fernando Navarrete, heading now up into turn 11. Job done nicely, and straight away Navarrete, who is new to the car, don't forget, he's not raced it before today. He's on a mission.
Yeah, mega move, really decisive. Didn't let Ukraine have an option to defend, just threw the car to the inside. Ukraine, very, very fair. And you can now see Lithuania as well coming through. Are they going to be able to get Ukraine as well? For Spain, yes, it's one position, but it's also one row higher up on the starting grid. Promotes them to the second row to start the medal race this afternoon. Go on board now. Are we closing in? Hard to see at the moment. Looks pretty even at this point, but over the lap we're definitely gaining. Be interesting to see, have we got time in the 8 minutes we've got left to get that car one position higher again.
Well, Spain really doing a good job here. The gap between Switzerland and Spain is 6.7 seconds, and we've got 8 minutes of the race remaining. So Fernando Navarrete having done a really good job to take that 4th place, to the delight of the team. And if I tell you that the team is over the moon, well, you might want some evidence about it, but let's just have a look, because the Spanish team reacted thus. Read into that what you will.
He looked quite pensive, didn't he, Jorge, there? Like, just think about it. Like, he's thinking maybe we're now going to push a little bit hard for no reason. Probably not going to catch Switzerland. But, yeah, if his teammate there can spot him doing 200 kilometres an hour pointing to his temples,
yes,
then he is thinking pretty well, would be my excuse for the driver in Team Spain at the moment.
So considering your man's just gained a place, that is the most understated way of celebrating it. It's the semaphore version of calm down, dear, I think that. Eric Debard, an additional 10-second penalty for track limits. And now Germany have got 5 seconds for track limits. So the penalties are coming thick and fast. But Germany, second. Now, this is going to be interesting. Can they be more than 5 seconds ahead of Switzerland by the end of the race? That will determine who is on the front row of the grid. And the margin at the moment between them is 16 seconds. So, yes, Germany is safe, but they can't afford to make further transgressions. Ukraine over the line, under attack now from Lithuania. The Audi battle, Gutsul versus Gachauskas, is going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Germany have got the 5 second, but the pace, they've grown 16 seconds over Switzerland.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that long ago that the move was done by Hubert Howe, so great job and great pace, but obviously pushing on too hard. And interestingly, he hasn't really closed the gap on Kotomini either, has he? So that gap staying around 17 seconds the whole time. On board with Lithuania behind Ukraine in a little wide. We broke too late there. Might get a good exit though. He's very patient on the throttle to let the car rotating in. Ukraine all over the road there, turning in too early. That's going to compromise them on exit potentially. Lithuania opening the car up. 5.5 minutes remaining, 4 laps. What can we do here as we see another 5 seconds given to the number 4 car? That is the German car. So we're just getting the update on that from our timing screen. Drone showing a set of 11s being shown from the Ukraine car on traction. That car is struggling there. Look at Lithuania, able to use so much curb. That car is being hustled on very, very aggressively.
Chinese Taipei being given a penalty of 10 seconds as well. They're in 10th place. As in the meantime, we go nose to tail then. Back on board with Spain. Ukraine just ahead as Gutsul bounces over the curve ahead of us. The Attempto Racing run. Audi, another of the top teams here in the hands of Fernando Navarrete for Spain, right up behind. Now, I wonder what semaphore is going to come from the pit wall this time from Jorge Cabezas as Navarrete gets the run. Sorry, it's not Navarrete, it is Lithuania, apologies. To the inside line goes Gachauskas, and he's going to get the job done on the way down towards turn 1. Absolutely side by side between the pair of them. Lithuania breaks latest and goes through. So Arūnas Gachauskas goes through into 5th place. As in the meantime, Navarrete is hunting down Switzerland and closing, but he's running out of time.
Yeah, good move. Again, we're seeing quite a lot of overtaking in turn 1. Just get that long draft all the way down the pit straight, which really helps you there. I don't think Ukraine are going to be able to respond to that one. I think Lithuania have got pace. I don't think they've got enough pace, however, to catch Spain, that Audi in front of them. I think this might be how they finish up. They'll be happy with that, though, starting in 5th place for the race this afternoon.
Indeed so. James Cottingham is still the race leader. The gap has come down a little, but it's tenths rather than anything more than a second. There was one lap where Hubert Howe pulled back a full second, but that was the rarity. It has come down, but not significantly. But this is only to give you a grid position. It is the main race later on in the day that they will really be focusing on, as right now Geciauskas for Lithuania, running in that newly won 5th place, tries to shake off Ukraine as they drop down once more out of turn 11, and that's the lead car. It's the United Kingdom.
Looking confident with the body language of that car, crossing power sliding out of turn 2 there. Let's watch him. How good can he place the car on the apex curve? Really nice. Looking nice and controlled as well, not scrappy. He'll just be using this information, so when he starts the race later, he's got as much confidence as possible against Hubert Howe, who was so impressive in qualifying. That is a race that I'm looking forward to watching the start of. Cottingham for UK versus Howe of Germany. It's going to be a very close and intense battle, is my prediction on that one.
And that main race is going to come up at 4:30 local time. And it's going to be another 60 minutes with the driver that is in the car now being the start driver. So it's going to be James Cottingham and Hubert Hout in the opening stint for the main race a little bit later on in the day, 4:30 local time. Busy afternoon of action at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo, because we've still got Formula 4 action. We've got, with the qualifying race, we've got the second qualifying session for the GT single make, as Chris Froggatt smiles contentedly from the pit lane. We've got touring car racing as well, all before the GT main race, and then the rally stage 14 of the event for the rally drivers at the end on the track at the end of the day. Right, another lap done by James Cottingham then. That now puts 36 of them in the book, and he's got just over 2 minutes on the clock. He's got 2 more laps.
Yeah, just looking at the order, the French car is catching Team Ukraine a little bit more than previously, but have 10 seconds of track limit penalties to be added on at the end. We're trying to obviously keep an eye on all of these track limits. 93 Cottingham has just had another track limit warning, so definitely doesn't need to be adding any more spice to that. Still has a 15-second gap, so all good at the moment, but another misdemeanor, that could be 5 seconds, and it's down to 10, and suddenly you are then starting to panic about everything. Only a minute and a half coming up. We're seeing the Team Spain having to do all the work here, not just a driver, pit crew as well. Really impressive.
Yeah, France has got 2 separate 10-second penalties to be applied. So Eric Debard for France, 7th on the road, but he's going to be hit really badly at the end of the race when those penalties are added on.
Yeah, a bit of a debacle there, isn't it? It's really fallen away from them. It's just, you just can't make the time back as a driver. You're looking for tenths, and when you're losing 20 seconds, then you just need to bring it back a level. And there is time between these 2 races to maybe look at that. And again, as the pros' job, it is to speak with the bronze, to look at the data in the video, to try and make sure that you are maximising the performance on and off track.
Now, in terms of who hasn't got a penalty, I think Switzerland is possibly about your only one. So there is the Swiss entry. Dexter Müller at the wheel. He's 21 seconds back from Germany, from Hubert Hout, so there's no catching there. And he's not going to be caught, or is he, by Fernando Navarrete for Team Spain. Not fast enough. It was about a 10th last time that he was slower than. So I think Switzerland is safe in 3rd, but we are into the last minute of the race then, as up behind Chinese Taipei, which has a penalty before you ask, 10th on the road, comes Switzerland. So actually, to have got through without penalty, I think Switzerland has done pretty well compared to everybody else here, but maybe there should be a medal for that. I still love the livery on that car, with the sort of throw the paint pot at it and walk away style effect.
Yeah, their flag's a big plus as well, isn't it? So it's a real, real nice effort by there to stay penalty free as well. Great shot here of just illustrating the gap that Team UK have, because Germany are still not into shot there. So Cottingham is now on his final lap, just going to be bringing it home. This is where, as a driver, you just want to make sure you're hitting all your marks, you're nice and relaxed and not doing anything silly. As soon as concentration levels drop, it's amazing how one mistake breeds into another. We can see the concentration on Cottingham barely blinking through this last part of Sector 2, bringing it into turn 11. You can again see the G-force of the whole car rocking around. Pretty physical on these drivers, this tight, twisty 4 kilometres at Valencia.
And Chris Froggatt then is watching the clock, and he's watching his teammate, and he's watching himself occasionally. As the checkered flag is imminent, it will be ready at the end of this lap. The GT discipline qualifying race then is going to be won by the United Kingdom's team. It's going to be James Cottingham to bring it home. A good opening stint by Chris Froggatt, and James Cottingham accelerates up towards the checkered flag. GT qualifying race honours won by the United Kingdom. James Cottingham and Chris Froggatt take the race win. and it is going to be a very happy Chris Froggatt then. Bearing in mind he picked up a penalty and he went through the gravel. James Cottingham brings the car home drama-free. It's a long wait before you get Germany for second place, and Hubert Haupt brings the car across the line now. But good news and a race win for United Kingdom. They've got to do it again, though, later on in the day for the medals. This one is just the hors d'oeuvre, really. Here for third place is Switzerland. Dexter Muller coming to the checkered flag after that lively stint offered up by co-driver Yannick Mettler earlier on. So it's United Kingdom, Germany, Switzerland, the top three. But there's nothing at stake other than grid positions. The medals come in the race that begins at 4:30. And there is a very happy James Cottingham. Not bad. Win first time out in the Ferrari. But it's a well-sorted car. And James, as we've been making the point, is an experienced GT3 driver, even if it's not in that particular car. And there he is on his in-lap. So a race win, but no medal yet for Team United Kingdom. And drama for Spain on the last lap. So Fernando Navarrete having, I think he's taken the flag and then celebrated down at turn 1. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say celebrated rather than a spin, but that was on the runoff at turn 1. Fernando Navarrete 4th for Team Spain, and had gone over the limit, either deliberately or accidentally.
Maybe it was the only lap his teammate didn't tell him to think about it. That's, again, what the coaching was doing. But best time to have a misdemeanor is on the in-lap. The only thing is race control can sometimes look dimly upon it because you should be in control of the car. Let's have a look. So we have taken the checkered flag, gone to see the crowd. Nice. So, no, that's fine. Sorry, I thought he'd rotated the car and give a bit of a rev. And
leaves 11's on the road, yeah. So it's not a donut, but hopefully race control will accept that was entering into the spirit of the event. But a good drive by James Cottingham. I don't want to sort of pick on Chris Froggatt, but he was the one that got the track limit penalty and did have a trip through the gravel. And James just did a really good, solid job, brought it home drama-free.
Yep, really nice. Didn't get put under any pressure,
no,
so we don't know how that's going to go in race 2. But yeah, didn't put a foot wrong in a car that we've already said is new to him. Very easily done that. So great job by both drivers for Team United Kingdom, and that's ultimately why they've won the race, and quite comfortably as well. So they will be very buoyant for the race later on this afternoon, like you said, at 4:30.
So the cars will go to Parc Fermé for the scrutineering. And let's just confirm the provisional result. It was quite a gap in the end as the United Kingdom took the qualifying race win from Germany, with Switzerland rounding out the top 3. Good drive from Spain to be 4th ahead of Lithuania and Ukraine 6th. Then it was China ahead of France, Qatar coming through ahead of Chinese Taipei, Japan after loss of pace early and a spin, fending off Malaysia, another nation that had a spin. James Cottingham and Chris Froggatt then the race winners for the UK. From Germany's Hubert Haupt and Finn Wiebelhaus, and third for Switzerland, Dexter Muller and Yannick Mettler. Fernando Navarrete and Jorge Cabezas for the home team 4th. Then Arūnas Gečauskas and Jonas Karklis for Lithuania 5th. Konstantin Gutsul and Ivan Peklin for Ukraine ran out the top 6. And China 7th, dropping away a little bit in the second stint. The pace from Zhang not being able to mirror that of Kang Ling. And Eric Debard and Paul Everard picking up 20 seconds worth of penalties, which dropped last year's gold medalists down to 8th. They'll start on the 4th row, but they're not out of the equation just yet. So Eric Debard, with a decent start, can buy himself a whole heap of places going into the main race later on. 4:30, it will all blast into action. Right now, though, the technical team want the car lined up in a given way so they can get as many as possible into the Parc Fermé area. And James Cottingham then takes that race victory. The Sky Tempesta Racing team that operates the car. In fact, there aren't many Ferraris in the world that AF Corsa doesn't operate. Yes, there are myriad other teams, I'll grant you, but they just seem to have such a huge fleet of whether it's GT or hypercars or one-make cars or domestic GT cars. The list goes on. And Stefan Rattel, who is not just Mr. GT, but he's also Mr. Motorsport Games. It's an SRO Motorsports Group event. Congratulates James Cottingham for Team UK, and as you can see from his crash helmet, also a member of the British Racing Drivers Club.
And he's come through the ranks really well and quickly, hasn't he? Now racing FIA World Endurance Championship in a McLaren, James Cottingham. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he goes this afternoon. I think there's going to be a lot more pressure from Team Germany at the start. Hubert Haupt starting alongside him, covering the front row between those two cars.
A really good first outing in that car for James Cottingham, and if he was a little bit nervous before, I'm not suggesting he would have been because he's a confident chap, but if he were nervous, then there's no need to be now because that was a very good stint indeed. So James Cottingham and Chris Froggatt are the race winners. It's the qualifying race, and Antonia Rankin, microphone in hand, is with them in Parc Fermé.
James, Chris, God, guys, that was absolutely brilliant. Hopefully you'll be able to repeat that later.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the race was great. A nice start, managed to get ahead of Germany at the beginning, and we sort of maintained position. A couple of mistakes along the way, track limits I didn't really want to do, but in the end it was okay. We managed to recoup, and James did a great job to bring it home, and we start on pole for the main race.
Yeah, James, for your first go, that was absolutely exemplar.
Yeah, no, really enjoyed it. Thank you. I think we were lucky at the start with the damp weather because I think we had that bit of an advantage, which meant Chris just put that to best use and pulled out the lead he did. Yeah, track limits are really difficult around here. I mean, at the end, I was just trying to cruise around and got 2 track limits and 2 laps. So, yeah, but a good experience for the race later on, and yeah, it'll be interesting. I think we've got a bit of homework to do between the races just to see how Germany did because they are super strong. So I think it's going to be a great final.
Now, guys, what's it like to represent your country? This is such a rare opportunity in motorsports, and it must feel really special from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I've done the event before, but when I first heard of it, I sort of jumped at the opportunity, and such a cool thing to do. Representing your country and what we love is an amazing experience.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I've dined out on it for a few weeks. Telling everyone I'm going to the Olympics. So yeah, no, loving it.
Well, you're kind of Olympians, but more importantly, you could be Motorsport Games winners later on. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
It's a good return for Chris Froggatt, bearing in mind, I think I made the point earlier on, he was poorly 2 years ago in the Paul Ricard edition. He was ill the week of the event, couldn't race. So the team captain for the United Kingdom back in harness and a race win, which is good to see. And with due deference to Chris Froggatt, outright race wins in the last few years have been few and far between. Understandably, because in the international GT races he's been in either the Pro-Am or the silver or the bronze category, not fighting for outright honours. Very accomplished driver in the one-make Ferrari world years ago. Runner-up in the FIA GT Nations Cup. But that's a good sort of confidence booster to have an outright race win.
Yeah, definitely. And you're used to worrying about your class, but when there are overall categories quicker than the class you're in, say, you're used to looking halfway down the timing screen. But when you're looking at your name at the top of the top, it is a very warm, nice feeling that would give you. You're totally right.
Well, the runners-up, Team Germany, Finn Wiebelhaus and Hubert Haupt.
Only if you win. Okay. Guys, that was really brilliant. Obviously, not quite there yet, but do you think you could have the pace later on?
Yeah, to be honest, we did too many mistakes. At the beginning, the first laps were good, then some track limits. I also collected some track limits, a bit too slow in the pits. A change of drivers, and so you continue to have the small mistakes.
Yeah, like Hubert mentioned, we did too many mistakes in the race, collecting some track limits, being too slow on the pits, but the pace, I guess, is there for later, and we'll fight for sure.
Thank you very much, guys. Good luck later.
Finn Wiebelhaus and Hubert Haupt. Either end of the spectrum in a sense in terms of their age here. Hubert Haupt, who's been racing for a long, long time, but still very, very quick. He's one of your shiny bronzes, really, isn't he? Because he's quick but bronze graded. And Finn Wiebelhaus, 18 years of age and a talent in the making.
Yeah, and I think he's very open to ideas and suggestions as well. So that is great to have a teammate like that for Wiebelhaus.
Sure. So, a great opening race that we've had. The GT cars back on track later on in the day, and James Cottingham and Chris Froggatt, the winners for Team United Kingdom. Qualifying race action for the GT discipline at the 2024 FIA Motorsport Games began with Germany on pole position, but Germany was outdragged by the United Kingdom on the way to turn 1 as Chris Froggatt took over the race lead. They were 4 wide for second, and a bit of contact further back as Chinese Taipei tagged Switzerland and forced them wide, and they lost places. There was a great battle though between Japan, Ukraine and Switzerland as they went toe-to-toe at turn 11. Ukraine on the outside, Switzerland on the in. Switzerland gained the place as a good start from Malaysia was undone after they had a spin at turn 12 and plunged into the gravel. Switzerland, Yannick Mettler, the driver, starting to make progress up on the inside to get ahead of Japan, and then set off in pursuit of China. He got a bit stuck in the pack, and it took a long time to go by as Spain pitted. The battles raged on back out on track then. Ukraine attacking Japan, and after Japan had a problem and a lack of pace out of turn 1, Ukraine threw on the inside line. But the big battle of the opening stint had been China versus Switzerland, and finally the door was left ajar and Yannick Mettler got ahead of Kang Ling. Switzerland passing China, and that at the time was for second place. It was a great battle, and after the pit stops, a lot of time had been lost by Germany, but it was able to go back through ahead of Ukraine as Hubert House set off in pursuit of the United Kingdom. First, though, he had to get past Switzerland, and that was against now Dexter Müller, who had taken over from Mettler. So Germany passed Switzerland on the run down to turn 1, as other battles raged on behind. Ukraine versus Spain, and a very bold effort by Fernando Navarrete gave Spain the place. But up front, to the dismay of the Spanish co-driver Jorge Cabezas, was the United Kingdom. And it was James Cottingham taking over from Chris Froggatt and bringing home the car for a win. The qualifying race determines the grid for the main race. Medals are on the line for that, but the quali race won by Team United Kingdom.